Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. We will give folks just a moment to clear the waiting room.
Good morning.
Morning. As a reminder, when you are entering from the waiting room, please do remain on mute unless or until you are testifying before the board. Good morning. This is a hearing before the licensing board for the city of Boston. Today is Tuesday, July 30th, 2024. Today's hearing is being held pursuant to temporary amendments to the open meeting law. That is what allows us to meet virtually. Today's hearing is being recorded and will be posted to the City of Boston's website. Before I review procedural matters, I will introduce Chairwoman of the Board, Kathleen Joyce.
Thanks, Danny. Good morning. My name is Kathleen Joyce, Chair of the Boston Licensing Board. Today, I am joined by Commissioner Liam Curran and Commissioner Kiana Saxon.
Thank you. Please ensure that your audio and visuals are working properly. I will call each item in the order that it appears on this morning's agenda. I will then ask who is present on behalf of the licensee, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department, and whether there are any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify. I will then swear in all parties. After that, the police report will be read into the record, and the licensee or their representative will have the opportunity to make a brief statement, followed by questions by the chair and commissioners. All testimony will be limited only to those individuals with firsthand personal knowledge of the alleged incident. Calling the first item on this morning's agenda, item number 1, GTI Properties, Inc., doing business as the Power Station, located at 530 Harrison Ave in Roxbury. Date of the incident, May 7th, 2024. Over serving guests in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Disturbance of the peace in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and large crowd outside in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board. Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the property owner and the management company, the Catered Affair. With me this morning are Dominic Torreira, who was the manager of the event on duty that night, Mike Doherty, who is the security manager for the Catered Affair, and Alex Marconi, who's the CEO of the Catered Affair. Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Good morning, Sergeant Kevin Bernazani from District 4, South End.
Great.
Officer Mallers, District 4, South End.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Officer Mallers. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify? Can all those who are planning to testify please raise your right hand? Mr. Torreira, could you please raise your right hand as well? Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. Be reading the police report into the record?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Sergeant Bernazani. You may please proceed.
Okay, about 10:47 p.m. on Tuesday, May 7th, 2024, officers Mallers and Robbins responded to a radio call for a disturbance at 519 Harrison Ave. Prior to officers' arrival, dispatcher notified the officers that a black male wearing all black and a gold chain was kicking and screaming at the glass door in front of the building. On arrival, officers let into the building by an individual fitting the description of the suspect, later identified as Dominion Hurt. Hurt, immediately upon seeing the officers, became irate and began screaming at the officers. That young white females were screaming and calling him all sorts of slurs. Hurt stated that he was volunteering at the 550 Harrison Ave Power Station for an event that had just gotten out when he heard the girls started calling him racial slurs. Hurt stated that he went into the building to confront the girls but couldn't find him. Officers smelled the odor of alcohol emanating from Hurt's mouth. Hurt also refused to identify himself to the officers, saying that he did nothing wrong. While speaking with Hurt, multiple of Hurt's co-workers approached the officers and began screaming at the officers, telling the officers to let him go, and that he was just volunteering. At this time, due to the amount of people involving in the situation, the unit. While officers were attempting to manage the amount of people arriving on scene, Hurt began running away from officers. Officers pursued him down Harrison Ave, onto a couple streets in the area. While attempting to find out the identity of Hurt, he continued to scream, swear, jump around, kick, and tense his body in an aggressive manner to the officers. The officer spoke with the caller, who said Hurt screaming, punching, and kicking the glass entry door to the building. Johnson stated, the caller stated that he saw Hurt turn his back to the door and swing his leg back in a hard and fast manner in an attempt to break into the building. The officers also spoke with the occupant of room 516. That occupant stated that he was sleeping when Hurt came banging on his door. The occupant stated that he didn't know what he was talking about, and there were no young girls in his apartment. And that Hurt then left the area. And then Hurt was transported to District 4 for booking. He continued to be uncooperative and continued to swear at the officers during the booking process. And he spit at multiple officers during the booking process. Then after that was done, I responded and performed a code 35 for the previous offenses that you listed.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yeah, if I could just ask a few questions of the sergeant. Good morning, Sergeant. How are you today?
Morning, sir. Well, how are you?
Good, thank you. Just from listening to your reading the report and having read it earlier, it would appear that the entire incident involved this one individual, Mr. Hurt. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you arrived at the scene, Mr. Hurt was in front of the apartment building that we hear about with kicking at the door or whatever he was doing outside. Is that right?
Yes.
So you didn't see Mr. Hurt at the power station, which is the kind of entity, if you will, where the event was going on across the street. You didn't see him in there, did you?
Correct.
So you did not see anyone overserve him, I presume.
Correct.
Nor anyone else.
Correct.
And the disturbance of the peace was all related to this one individual and his attempts to get into the building across the street. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say that the large crowd outside resulted from, I mean, by my count, there were maybe 5 different cruisers that arrived at the scene?
I'm not sure how many cruisers were there, sir.
At the 101F, K.
Sure.
There were looks like 5 or 6 of them. Actually, I mean, is it possible that the large crowd gathered in response to the police presence or the fact that this guy was yelling in the street?
I'm sure either is possible.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. And are you aware of what the event was at the what's called the power station across the street?
I believe someone mentioned it was some type of charity event.
Okay. Indeed, it was a nonprofit, the Rogerson Communities, which is a nonprofit, was holding an event there that night. So did you go over and question anybody at the event?
I spoke to the manager who directed me to the licenses and took the information.
Okay.
Notice.
And was that Mr. Torreira, who was here with us this morning?
I don't recall the name of the person I spoke to.
All right, but you did speak to some management person at the event.
Yes.
Okay, and they gave you the description of what the event was and answered your questions?
Yes.
And you indicated in your licensed premise inspection notice that management cooperated, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. I have no further questions. Attorney Green, may I call Mr. Torreira?
You may.
All right. Where I get Mr. Torreira, there you are. I see you've been sworn. Just state your name for the record and what your job responsibilities are and who you work for.
My name is Dominic Tarara. I am the venue operations manager for the Catered Affair by way of GTI Properties. I manage the SOA power station.
Okay. And on the night in question, you heard the officer describe an incident. Were you aware of this incident?
Yes, when I was made aware of the incident, I stepped outside and saw him in the lot going to the place across the street,
Okay.
whatever that building, the building he was kicking. I saw him over there yelling and screaming.
Him, this Mr. Hurt.
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Hurt, is he, was he involved in the event at your facility?
He was a volunteer for Rogerson Communities. So he was hired by Rogerson Communities to, I'm not sure what his exact function, if he was on coat check, if he was, placing names on tables, I'm not sure, but he was hired by them directly to be a volunteer.
Okay. And can you just describe what the event was and what you know about Rogerson Communities, what that entity is?
Yes, as you stated earlier, Rogerson Communities, it is I would say it's it's a group of elderly homes, and they were just they do like an annual nonprofit gala. It's a fundraiser to try to bring more awareness to their Rogerson homes, and they just needed extra help, so they had volunteers helping them put on the large event.
And can you just tell the board roughly how many people were at the event and what the time frame of the event was?
Yes, there was roughly about 250 people. The event was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. So it would appear the earliest time stated on the police report appears to be 10:47. So is it fair to say that by that time the event would have been over?
Correct. By that time, a majority, if not all, of the guests were off premise.
Okay. And again, Mr. Hurt, who's the person you observed causing the issues across the street, was a volunteer for the user at your event, not an employee of yours or had anything to do with the catered affair or the GTI properties.
That is correct.
Okay. And as a volunteer, would Mr. Hurt have been served alcohol?
No, we do not serve any employees or volunteers alcohol at all. No.
Okay. Okay. And just would you describe the patrons, if you will, the Rogerson House patrons? What age group were they? What kind of a group was it? Were they loud, boisterous? Were they
Most of the demographic were people that were involved in Rogerson House. Some of them actually stayed at the Rogerson House. So it was the age bracket for the Rogerson House. So I would say probably 55 plus was your age bracket for your main age bracket. And they would maybe be accompanied by, their children that might be in their 40s. So it was a very subdued crowd.
Okay. Okay. And any issues with the event other than Mr. Hurt and what he did across the street?
Not at all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tarr. The board members may have some questions for you. Could I briefly call Mr. Doherty, who's the security manager?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mr. Doherty, again, you've been sworn. Just state your name for the record and your job responsibilities with the catered affair.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Doherty. I am the owner-operator of the Devlin Security Group.
And were you employed by Catered Affair? Are you employed by the Catered Affair?
I'm a subcontractor for Catered Affair and their corporate events.
Okay. And were you involved with this particular event?
My team and myself, we did security that evening, yes.
Okay. And during that time, were there any issues with the crowd, with the people attending the event, or otherwise that you were made aware of?
No, it was very banal. It's common for most events that happened. It was a fundraiser for the organization that had rented the space. It was a very peaceful crowd. And they exited the venue when they were asked to leave at 2200 hours.
Okay. And do you have any knowledge of this individual, Mr. Hurt? Do you know who he is? Were you aware of him before this incident?
No, we were not introduced to the volunteer staff that evening.
You know him to have been a volunteer for the Rogerson House at the event?
Post-incident, yes. I was made aware of that.
Okay. And post-incident, did you do any other, excuse me, did you make any other observations or have any other information you could provide the board this morning?
I have some pre-written statement if I could put into the record, if that's okay.
Attorney Green, is that all right, Madam Chair? Yep, go ahead.
Okay, just to give a historical analysis of what's going on at the building. So, as I mentioned, my name is Michael Doherty. I'm an owner operator of the Devlin Security Group. My company has been associated with the venue and the owner of the property, GTI Properties, since the venue opened for private and corporate events during the spring of 2022. In that time, I've conducted security details to include myself and my team, which is made up of former law enforcement officers. During that time span, without any incident, in my professional opinion, the catered fair and the management team of GPI Properties take their responsibilities to the venue, the event participants, and the community with great care and diligence. Currently, the catered fair leases the space from GTI Properties for private events. We've already discussed the situation with outside. So when volunteers are on site, they may not be introduced to us or have obvious indication, a lanyard badge or a name tag. This evening, as I stated a few minutes ago, we were not introduced to the volunteer. So I've spoken to the owners, you know, moving forward to take care of that situation. We're gonna put policies in place. So when we go to the meetings pre-event, we know who all the members are. We're gonna have a list of names and everything to avoid this situation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. The board members and chair may have some questions for you. If not, may I just ask Mr. Marconi to make a brief statement?
Thank you. Yes, you may.
Mr. Marconi, you've been sworn in. Just state your name and your involvement with the entity of the location.
Sure. Thank you, Dennis. My name is Alexander Marconi. I am the CEO of the Catered Fair. I appreciate everyone's time today and allowing me to make a brief statement regarding this unfortunate set of circumstances. But just from an overall perspective, as a company, we strongly support nonprofit organizations. The power station is an ideal location for these groups to come together and raise money that is vital to their ongoing operations. In fact, we really wanted this piece of business. We discounted our pricing for this event. We also made a donation to the Rogerson communities in support of their efforts in the city. And as I said, this is exactly the type of business that we want at the power station, supporting local community organizations that give back to the city. It's unfortunate that this happened, but this is not typical of the events that we execute. In the 100 or so events that we've done at the power station, we have not had any issues, incidents, or anything like this happen. It was a complete aberration. I feel badly that it took place, but I just want to stress, how important these events are, and that this really was a one-off isolated incident and is not representative of the way that we operate our business, that the way that GTI manages the property. Thank you for your time.
And Mr. Marconi, just confirm for the board that this individual, Mr. Hurt, was not your employee, but rather a volunteer selected by other parties to be there that night?
That is correct. He was not an employee of the was not an employee of the Catered Fair.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Again, for any of these individuals, the board members may have some questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will see if there are any questions from the board at this time, starting with Chairwoman Joyce.
Thanks, Danny. Who is the manager of record here? Is it you, Mr. Marconi?
No, it is Sean Fitzgerald, who's actually seated just to my right.
Okay, and he's an employee of GTI?
He's an employee of the Catered Fair. We operate the liquor license under a management agreement.
Okay, so Mr. Fitzgerald is ultimately responsible for what happens under this license. So
Yes,
Mr. Fitzgerald or Mr. Marconi, but it would probably be questions for Mr. Fitzgerald. Tell me about your process for vetting groups that put on events at the power station, and ultimately what your involvement is with who they bring in as far as volunteers and staff.
So for us, we have a set of sales team. The sales team deals directly with our clients or would-be clients who want to use and rent out the space at SOA Power Station. When it comes to daily operations there, I am there about 3 to 4, maybe 4 to 5 days a week. managing the facilities over there, helping manage the facilities. When it comes to the event space and dealing with potential clients, that would be led to our sales team. They are the ones that vet these potential clients and deal with them.
Okay, but your name is on the license, correct?
Correct.
So, in my professional opinion, turning over the responsibilities of who comes into your space to a sales team when your name is on the liquor license is probably not a good way to manage things. Sales team's priorities or goals are probably, I'm assuming, is to make money and to fill the space, and yours as manager of record are quite different. So tell me a little bit more about the volunteers this day, what your involvement was in talking to the actual group that was renting the place. Did you ever communicate with them about that event?
I was not there for that event. And leading up to that event, I was working with other events.
But are you aware of the events that actually take place at SOA Power Station?
I'm aware of every event that goes through there. I may not have a hand per se in every aspect that goes into that event, but I am aware of every event, the crowd, the capacity, the guest count, everything.
The staffing, are you aware of the staffing at events that go on?
I am aware of the staffing from our aspect of it, from the TCA employees that are going to that event. I'm aware of that staffing aspect, but not the volunteer aspect.
And that is responsibilities given to a sales team?
No. No, Madam Chair, I think that what the suggestion is that the volunteers were selected by the Rogerson House. And they were volunteers.
I understand, Attorney, but
it had nothing to do with the.
Mr. Fitzgerald's name is on the liquor license, and with that comes an enormous responsibility. And giving a lot of that responsibility to a sales team, to me, doesn't sound like good business practices. We've seen this at other places in the city where they have under 21 events and the manager of record is not aware of it. Volunteers come in and the manager of record is not aware of it. Here we have a disturbance of the peace, a large crowd outside, police response, and the manager of record said he gave the responsibility of this event to a sales team. His name is on the license, so to me, that is very questionable.
You heard from Mr. Terrara, who was the manager on duty. He works under Mr.
Okay, no, I'll get to that. I, with all due respect, I will get to that, but to me, lining up the huge responsibility, in my opinion, of a manager of record with the, you know, being aware of an event, but not really being involved in events. I question whether or not that is what we're looking for at the board as far as responsibility.
Madam Chair, of course you know, as you license thousands of operations, there are assistant managers and on-duty managers who report to managers of record throughout the city.
Why don't you walk me through that?
Basis. I'm sorry?
Why don't you walk me through the chain of command here? Who ultimately was responsible for this night? Not just filling the event, making sure that they make money. Who's responsible at the end of the day if something happened?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's the licensee, which is GTI Properties, but the licensee has a management agreement approved with the Catered Affair. The owner and operator of the Catered Affair is on your screen. The manager of record is on your screen. The on-duty manager is on your screen. The head of security is on your screen. The entire top to bottom command is right here.
No, I see that. I'm trying to get to my question. So I finished with Mr. Fitzgerald. You responded. So I'm going to ask Mr. Terrara, who's from the Catered Affair. Mr. Terrara, tell me about your involvement with selecting this group, having an event here, and the volunteers that were able to work the event that night.
Okay. So as stated, once an entity or a client wants to come into our space, they tour the space, they sign an agreement with us. They have autonomy over their employees. So as far as who they're going to staff for that day, we would meet them on that day. I wouldn't have any prior knowledge to them before that. I would have more of a count rather than their names, because again, they don't work for me directly. As far as the, just so we're all on the same page as well, anybody that's a bar, serving our bar, involved with the liquor at all is a TCA employee. We have no volunteers helping with anything that has to do with anything with the bar. We didn't, again, they weren't under our tutelage anyways. They were with Rogerson Events and AJ Events, which is their client that was running the event.
Do you have like pre-event meetings with the event organizers to talk about staffing and responsibilities?
Yes, we do.
Okay, want to elaborate a little bit on that for us?
Yes. So we ask, how many staff, because we also provide staff meals, right? So we ask how many staff they're going to have. We ask, what is their function going to be? And when they say something like, oh, we have volunteers that are going to help us do human arrows or put, place cards out on tables, there's not much back and forth that really goes into that. It's a volunteer for them. They're a nonprofit and they're trying to keep their costs low. So they go to people within their community. Most of those volunteers, to my knowledge, came from reference from their employees.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no further questions. Commissioner Curran, Commissioner Saxon?
Yeah, so my questions maybe are more specific to the evening. What were the responsibilities of the volunteers that night? From beginning, you're saying putting out place cards, so that seems like stuff that happens at the very beginning, and then they would be left with no responsibilities going forward. What was your understanding of what the responsibilities of the volunteers for this organization were throughout this evening?
Honestly speaking, it was kind of vague. Like I said, it was place cards and human arrows, help with jackets, things like that. They weren't saying, hey, we're going to have these people clearing, because again, we were doing the dinner, so we wouldn't have, their volunteers wouldn't really be involved in any of the catering or any of the beverage service. So to your point, yes, they might have had some downtime in between, but that is between, their employer and them.
Okay, and during that downtime, would these volunteers have been readily identifiable to your staff?
Yes, they were all dressed in all black, but it was formal black. There was no name tags or place or badges for them to be wearing, but if they were standing in a group, you could absolutely tell.
Okay, and you've already said that the volunteers wouldn't have been served, but with specificity to this night and maybe even this individual, was an inquiry made of your servers of whether they didn't in fact serve or did not serve this person?
Yes, we asked if they have served anybody that was out of the ordinary, and then we asked about the description of this gentleman. I got a no across the board.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
I guess, was there anyone who observed his behavior or demeanor or smelled his breath at any time during the night? Were there any reports? Did you ask any of the other servers whether they noticed anything?
We did ask. I also asked security as well if they saw anything. They did not. I didn't see any flag-worthy behavior until obviously the yelling, when I got brought to my attention the yelling outside, which the cops came almost immediately after. So I did not see any of that. And even to the reports, he was fighting with somebody outside. So inside, I didn't see anybody angry, yelling, no upset, no even having minced words, a debate, nothing.
Any further questions from the board? Great. With that, the board will take this matter under advisement. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I just say one last thing? As it relates to volunteers at these events, it is a very common occurrence that nonprofit organizations will have volunteers at events. And to Dominic's point, I think to Commissioner Kern's question. They do have responsibilities throughout the evening. We are not necessarily informed of specifically what those responsibilities are, as our sort of interaction with the volunteers really is about saying to them, at 5:30, we'll have, the staff meal ready for you on the second floor. And they'll come up and they'll eat and they'll go back to their duties throughout the evening. Some of them are there earlier on site, help with the setup, actually, as Dominic said, putting name cards on tables, maybe arranging some silent auction items. Frequently they're involved in the actual fundraising process throughout the evening. So there's like a number raise where during the ceremony and the speeches, you raise your paddle to donate money. Volunteers are typically in charge of collecting those amounts and then confirming payment with people, and really facilitating the fundraising side of the event, which is obviously a big part of it and does take more hands and bodies than just people getting up and making speeches. So as these events continue to occur, volunteering is a big part of it, and it does keep the nonprofit organizations' costs down, and allows people to assist and to give back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marconi. With that, anything further from the board? Okay, board will take this under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Calling item number 2, Game On Fenway LLC, doing business as Game On Sports Cafe, located at 72 to 82 Lansdowne Street. Date of the incident, May 18th. This was noticed as an assault and battery patron on patron, should have been noticed as assault and battery employee on patron, given the underlying police report, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. The licensee has agreed to move forward with this morning's hearing, and we'll make sure that that's acknowledged on the record as well. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Again, good morning again. Attorney Green, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dennis Quilty, attorney representing the licensee. And I will confirm that the board attorney brought that to my attention earlier this morning, and we had no objection to moving forward at the hearing today. Thank you. So with me this morning, Gerald Culbert, assistant manager who was on duty, who actually signed the inspection notice, Isaiah Moore of our security staff, and Katina Corapines, who's the risk manager and would be the keeper of video and other such records. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I can see all of the individuals on my screen. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Good morning, Sergeant Kevin Bernazani again from District 4.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify? Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I
do.
Thank you. Sergeant Bernazani, if you could please read the police report into the record for the board.
Okay, about 2:15 a.m. on Saturday, May 18th, officers Richard wanted to assault and battery in progress at Game On 82 Lansdowne Street. Upon arrival, officers spoke with both victims, Mark Andrew and Samuel Orsi. Victim 1 stated that he was downstairs at Game On with his friends and an unknown Game On bouncer about an incident involving a friend. He stated that the bouncer was not helping, and Andrew then proceeded to video record the bouncer. Both Andrew and Orsi stated that they were then told to leave the bar by multiple Game On bouncers. Victim 2, Orsi, stated that some bouncer his neck and dragged him. Both victims stated that while they were outside, they continued video recording the incident. Both victims stated that there were multiple bouncers accompanied by unknown males telling the victim to leave. Victim 1, Andrew, stated that an unknown male patron then slapped his hand in an attempt to remove the phone. Victims then left the scene. Officers spoke with the manager of the Game On, Gerald Culbert, who stated that both victims were intoxicated and causing an issue inside the bar. Culbert stated that victim 2 attempted to punch one of the bouncers. Victim 2 was then removed from Game On. Culbert stated that while both victims were outside, they were video filming patrons and Game On staff and causing a disturbance. Officers spoke with Game On bouncer Isaiah Moore, who stated that the victims were removed because they were intoxicated and causing a disturbance inside the bar. Moore also stated that when the bar was closing, multiple bouncers advised patrons on the surrounding sidewalks the bar was closing and for all parties to vacate the area. Moore stated that both victims then proceeded to video record the bouncers and patrons and continued causing disturbance. Both victims denied any EMS services. and were advised to save video documentation of the incident. And I issued a licensed premise violation to Game On for assault and battery on a patron.
Thank you very much. Attorney Quilty, would you like to address the alleged incident?
If I may ask the Sergeant a few questions?
Mhm.
Good morning again, Sergeant. Excuse me. When you arrived on scene, whatever incident occurred inside had already taken place, and you observed these people outside the premise. Is that correct? Sergeant?
Yes, you hear me?
I didn't hear anything. I'm sorry.
Yes, I observed them outside.
Outside the premise. All right. So with regard to any incident inside, you made no observations inside the establishment.
Correct.
And by the time you got there, the establishment was that had closed for the evening. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you were able to discuss with the two individuals as well as staff as to what happened.
Yes.
And you indicated both in your report and on the inspection notice that management cooperated with you.
Yes.
And did they suggest to you that in fact, they have on film one of these two individuals striking one of their staff people as opposed to the other way around?
I don't recall if they mentioned it was on film or not, just what was in the report.
Okay. So they said that one of these two individuals struck one of them.
Yes.
Okay. And did you see them, were these two people outside filming on the street? Is that what was occurring as you arrived?
I don't think they were filming by the time I got there, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, and do you know how long they were, I'll strike that. When you arrived, they were outside and was staff dealing with them, or what was staff?
They were across the street, across Brookline Avenue at that time.
The two people who were filming and what have you.
Yes.
They were across the street, and were staff on the outside the premise? Were they attempting to, remove people from the area and close up for the night, et cetera?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. May I just inquire of the staff people we have here this morning?
Mhm.
Thank you. Mr. Colbert.
Yes.
Yes, having been sworn, just restate your name for the record and state your job responsibilities and whether or not you were present on the night in question.
Gerald Colbert, at the time Assistant General Manager, and yes, I was present.
Okay, Assistant General Manager for Game On.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And can you, in your words, can you describe what occurred between your staff and these two individuals on the night in question?
Yeah, so there was two groups of people at the bar. They had gotten into an argument. Upon hearing what was going on, one of my security guards, we escorted one of the groups out of the building, and then they continued to, the group that we let stay, they were continuing to talk to security, and they were upset with us that they felt like we should have done more. And then that went on for about 5-10 minutes, and they got aggressively more angry. So we asked one of the gentlemen to leave. He's wearing like a Bruins sweatshirt or jersey or something like that. We asked him to leave because he was berating security. At that point, he didn't want to leave, and he decided to throw a punch at one of my security guards. So then we forcibly removed him from the building.
And these two individuals, are they Mr. Orsi and Andrews, who were just described in the police report as the victim?
I believe only one of them threw a punch at one of the security guards, and he's the one who was forcibly removed from the building.
And they were complaining that your security guards hadn't done enough to the other two that you asked to leave first?
Yeah, so I don't exactly know what they were trying to get at. We had told the group that they were arguing with that it was time for them to go, and they left on their own accord. They left right out of the building. I don't exactly know what they would have liked us to do, but yes, that's what their issue was.
But just again, to be certain, the two individuals, the one with the Bruin shirt and the other, the second group,
yes,
is that the individuals Orsi and Andrew who are described in the police report?
Yes.
Okay. So they were in a verbal argument with another group. That group was asked to leave. They did so peacefully. And Mr. Orsi, Mr. Andrews stayed behind, complained to you, and that got to a point where you thought they were being inappropriate and asked them to leave. Is that what happened?
Yes, well, they weren't complaining to me. It was a security guy, but yes, they were complaining. They felt like we should have done more, and then it just escalated.
Okay. And they were the people who were later outside filming staff and patrons.
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, is any of this captured on video?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Mr. Culbert. The board may have some questions. And if I may just inquire of Mr. Moore, is he with us?
I did.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. May I inquire of this witness? Thank you. Mr. Moore, again, you've been sworn. Just state your full name for the record and what your job responsibilities were on the night in question.
My name is Isaiah Moore. I'm the security manager at Game On Fenway.
Okay. And did you make any observations of the incident which we're discussing this morning?
Yes. At that time, I was working the door. I was radioed that security was coming up with the patron. When they got outside, they explained to me what happened. So, as my job as I was, explaining to the patron on why he couldn't get back in. From that time, he stood outside. Him and his friend stood outside for probably maybe like a good while, antagonizing the security that was outside with me. I want to say, as time went on, we started to let the other patrons come out from the club. They started to video record as we was trying to like clear the sidewalk. We got the sidewalk cleared, and then I advised the other security to go back inside. I stayed outside with another security guard, and other patrons was coming from different venues. The patron actually started recording random people on the street. People were asking him to please stop recording him. One of the guys that he had an encounter with actually ended up taking his phone and throwing it. At that time, myself and the other security guard stepped in between them. We had the guys that actually came from Game On move across the street as to where the officer's talking about when he arrived.
Yeah. So was it a patron out on the street, a patron from another establishment who knocked the phone out of this guy's hands when he was filming?
Yeah, this patron actually was not from Game On. He was actually coming up the street, like coming from like the House of Blues area.
Okay. But
he had stated that
okay, that person was not your staff member. They were simply somebody out on the street.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And did you interact with the police officers when they arrived?
I did.
And did you cooperate with them to your ability?
Of course.
You told them what happened. You indicated what you knew, and answered their questions. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. The board may have some questions for you, and if I may just ask Ms. Corapines quickly. Ms. Corapines, you've been sworn too. Please just state your name for the record and your job responsibilities with the licensee.
My name is Katina Corapines. I'm the risk manager for the Lions Group, and it is my responsibility when matters like this pop up to connect with all the management teams, get as much information as I can about the incident, and assisting with whether that's filing an incident report with our insurance carrier, as well as assisting in putting documentation together for a licensing board hearing.
And would that documentation include video?
Yes, we have video from this night.
Okay, can you provide that video to the board?
Yes, I will be able to provide that to the board.
And you know how to reach Mr. Green electronically? You've done this before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I just want to make one note in regards to the video surveillance. Pretty much everything that happened inside was captured on surveillance, including the initial group. You see like four people arguing. One happens to be wearing a Bruins jersey. I don't exactly remember what everybody else was wearing off the top of my head, but you see like a bouncer, you see the group arguing, you see a bouncer or security staff person with a baseball hat, glasses. He's a large white male. And at some point you see another bouncer, another security person walk in front of them and take these two white males and usher them out away from the bar. And those people end up going outside. And then you see a gentleman in the Bruins jersey and his friend. I think his friend was wearing a white shirt and dark colored pants. You see them kind of not just talking to the security staff person, but more like it looks like they're harassing him to me. And then you see the Bruins jersey guy step in. You see him kind of motion. It's slow motion. And then you see the security person along with several other people grab the person in the Bruins sweatshirt, and each person literally had to grab. There were probably 4 security staff people. Each one had a leg or an arm and had to carry him out because he refused to leave. You see him being carried out of the basement, ushered into the elevator, and then you see him later come out the front door. Unfortunately, the incident that took place that Isaiah Moore was referencing, that happens out of view of the camera angle. So you don't actually see the person in the Bruins jersey videotaping everybody. You don't see him. You don't see the individual that happened to be walking up from Lansdowne Street, because this takes place on the corner of Brookline and Lansdowne. You don't see the person that comes up Lansdowne Street and asks the guy in the Bruins jersey to stop recording him. You don't see the guy in the Bruins jersey force his phone into the guy's face and the guy slap it out. You see everything else, but you do not see that.
I don't know whether the board has any questions, but that's our statement this morning.
Thank you, Attorney Quilty. We'll see if there are any questions. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you for all that information. I'll wait until I review the incident reports and the videos. I think you addressed a lot of the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon. Any questions?
Not a question so much, it's just a comment. You know, I made statements about how we'd like training to include, you know, that staff can't be provoked by drunk customers. You know what I mean? It's foreseeable that your customers will be, you know, provoking you or trying to provoke you. You have to maintain your cool. And I just want to add on that I want to make sure that training includes like pulling out cell phones. I know how that can seem like a very provocative act, but you know, I'm not saying that that's what happened here, but I want training to make sure training includes like, you know, don't allow yourself to be provoked by someone pulling out their phone and sticking it in your face and all that kind of stuff. So just in the way of comment in general, not specific to this, whether there was a violation here, but thank you.
Thank you.
No questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, the board will take this matter under advisement. Please do forward any videos or internal reports to the board, and we'll make sure that that is shared with the commissioners. Thank you.
We'll do that right after the
I will
hearing.
get that out.
Appreciate that. Calling item number 3, BHC Corporation General Partner doing business as Club Cafe located at 209 Columbus Ave. Date of the incident, May 19th, 2024. Similar to item 2, this was noticed as an assault and battery patron on patron. Mistakenly should have been an assault and battery employee on patron in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. And similarly, the licensee has agreed to move forward with this morning's hearing. I will acknowledge that on the record as well. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
My name is Donald Vaughn. Good morning, Chairman Joyce and members of the board. I'm an attorney with Burns and Levinson representing the licensee.
Thank you. And who is with you, Attorney Vaughn?
With me today are, it's a little hard to tell everybody, but it looks like it is James Morgrage, who's the general manager of Club Cafe, the licensee, and Christopher Sterling, the club's director of security and the manager on duty at the time of the incident.
Thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Good morning, Sergeant Isabel Sweet, District 14.
Thank you, Sergeant Sweet. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify?
Good morning, Officer Castor, District D4.
Thank you, Officer Castor. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you all very much. Who will be reading the police report into the record?
I'll read it, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant. You may please proceed.
Sure. About 1:40 a.m. on Sunday, May 19th, 2024, Officers Castor and Maureen, sorry, in the Delta 203 responded to a radio call for removal at Club Cafe located at 209 Columbus Ave. Upon arrival, officers escorted Henry Williams outside of the above location, and he stated that security guards had attacked him. Williams stated that he was waiting outside of the restrooms for a friend when a security guard, later identified as Pablo Garrido, told him that he was too intoxicated and needed to leave. Williams stated he refused to leave, and that's when Garrido leg swiped him and brought him to the ground. Williams denied any medical attention. The security guard, Garrido, stated that Williams was highly intoxicated and he asked him to leave. Garrido then stated that Williams pushed him and then pushed another customer. Garrido then restrained Mr. Williams by placing his arms around him and tried to escort him out of the establishment. It should be noted that there is security footage on the incident, and that's when I responded on scene and conducted a licensed premise check.
Thank you very much. Attorney Vaughn, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Sergeant Sweet. And Officer Castor, thank you too. Does the record show that the licensee called the police for assistance?
I assume we were there because of that, Officer Castor.
Yeah. We can later have the Director of Security confirm that, but the licensee did ask for assistance that resulted in the police presence. And does the record show that the licensee cooperated with the police on scene?
Yes, sir. They were very cooperative.
Okay, thank you. Earlier today, I had emailed to the board a letter that sets out what I'm going to be explaining or discussing now. It also has 3 statements, incident reports that were produced by members of the licensee security team who were present at the night of the event. In addition, as the sergeant mentioned, there is a video coverage for this incident, and I provided that by a link. If the board has difficulty opening that, we can provide it by some other method. But in general, what I'd like to summarize is that the incident reports and the police report basically describe the same incident. One of the things that the incident reports of the employees goes into more detail concerning is the, obviously the events prior to the arrival of the police on the scene. One of those is that, and we can have Mr. Sterling testify to this in a moment. One of those is that, as mentioned in the police report, the alleged victim was asked to leave the premises and refused to do so. And there began an attempt to have him escorted out, at which time he then assaulted the security officers. I'd like to ask Mr. Sterling to testify, if I may.
You may.
Mr. Sterling, can you briefly state your position at the licensee and summarize what occurred that evening?
Sure. My name is Christopher Sterling. I am one of the security managers at Club Cafe. So on the night in question, I was up towards the front. This is all in my written statement too, so you can refer to that back if you need to in the future. I was up near the front of the bar. I received a radio call to security to the back end of the bar. When I arrived there, I saw a number of security guards, patrons, and other employees sort of crowded around this one individual who seemed to be very, very angry. I went over and tried to intervene to sort of de-escalate him and to find out what was happening, and he became very aggressive with me. I was trying to, calm him down, ask him to walk up to the front of the bar to sort of find out exactly what was happening, and he was refusing to move. He was refusing to answer any of my questions. He was getting very combative with me. He seemed as if he was trying to lurch towards one of the people behind me. I couldn't exactly see who that was because I was directly in front of them. He was yelling faggot at one of the employees, and trying to push past me again at that. Dennis Vlasov, who was one of the other managers who unfortunately can't be here today because he's visiting his home in Russia, actually. He is the one that called the police when the gentleman was refusing to leave the bar. We eventually de-escalated him a bit and got him to start moving towards the front, and that is around the time that the police arrived. The police went outside and spoke with him. And at that point, I then went back and spoke with the other security guards to find out what was actually happening, because I sort of came in the middle of it. They had indicated they had seen a patron who was standing near the bathroom, who looked like he was at the point where we could not responsibly serve him any more alcohol. They asked him to leave. He was refusing to do so, and they became combative with our with our security personnel named Logan. He then, according to Logan and Pablo, again, also it's in their written report, and you can also see this somewhat on the video that has been submitted, became somewhat aggressive with Logan, started pushing him. At that point, Pablo began to try to restrain him to leave the bar. As they're walking out, Pablo fell down with the patron. They fell down, they got back up. The aggressive patron then began sort of pushing other people and again trying to attack Logan again. I believe that he also pushed Jim Iannucci, who I believe is one of our regular patrons, who I believe may now be here in the hearing. I don't know if that's for certain. I can't see the full thing right now. And then they brought him over to the bar and started talking to him, and then that's when I came over. So I did not directly witness any of the physical altercations that took place, but the video that has been provided shows that, and also correlates to the documents or the statements that were given by Logan and Pablo.
Thank you. The board might have some questions for you.
Any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Attorney Vaughn, do you have anything further before we move to questions from the board?
No, I believe that fully summarizes what we'd like to say from Mr. Sterling.
Thank you. Did you have any other witnesses that you would like to present before we move to questions?
We do. I'm sorry, Jim Mortgage, General Manager, Club Cafe. Jim Iannuzzi is here in the room. Jim, are you there? You're muted.
Rather than hold.
There he is.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Iannuzzi, are you wishing to provide testimony on this matter?
Yes, I am. I did raise my hand when you were swearing people in.
Thank you. Could you please just turn your camera on so that we can confirm? Thank you. And if you could please briefly raise your hand now so we can make sure you're sworn in front of the board. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Mr. Iannuzzi. You may please proceed.
So I have, I've been a patron of over 30 years at Club Cafe. And it's a place where I feel comfortable going, being a gay man in Boston, as well as the whole community. And, even if you're not gay, it's a place where anybody can go and feel safe. They have more security than any place I've been to in the city, and they take their job very serious. That night, I was just standing in the back, listening to music, and watching people dance, and I heard this come in, and I come out, and exactly what Chris had said and the officer had said on that report, that I have read as well, was what took place. And when I heard this person who was actually very mean and angry, he was yelling faggot, faggot. I automatically jump into this defense mode of thinking it's a hate crime, especially being in a place where there's people and the world being an angry place now. So I tried to just de-escalate and get in between the security team and this gentleman to try to calm him down and maybe just talk to him, not being a security person. Maybe he'd listen to me a little bit more. But he was just out of control. And at that point, he pushed me up against the bar. And then security came and they did put their arms around him and try to bring him out to the front, which they did. And then that was the last that I've seen of it. But I know that, you know, this establishment is a place that I go to and feel safe, and they run it unbelievable. And, you know, I know that when I stand there some nights at the door and people are leaving, they thank the staff, you know, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thanks for keeping us safe. This is a great place. Thank you so much. So that's, you know, that's pretty much what, you know, what happened that night. You know, I know that the police did come at one point, and that's when I left as well. It was roughly 2 o'clock.
Thank you for that. With that, Attorney Vaughn, anything further before we move to questions from the board?
The only, thank you, Attorney Green. The only additional point has to do with the training that is given to security personnel at the club. I know that I've discussed this before, but and it's in the letter which I submitted, but we're happy to discuss it more here. Just briefly to say, the training involves an initial training at the time that a person is hired. Before that, it involves background checks, and it involves periodic updates. Each of the persons employed by the licensee involved in the incident, namely Mr. Sterling, Logan Reynolds, and Pablo Garrido. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Reynolds, and Mr. Garrido, all having provided statements, have gone through that training and the updates. In addition, the reason Mr. Garrido and Mr. Reynolds are not here today is that, like many people in today's world, they have more than one job and they couldn't get the time off from it, but they did provide the statements. Mr. Garrido's job is providing, as being part of a security team at a local hospital at which he has received additional training dealing with different incidents, but similar incidents involving persons who are undergoing or apparently undergoing a fair amount of stress. With that, I'll just like to ask Jim Morgrage, who's the general manager, to provide any additional information he wishes at this time. Jim?
Good morning again. I guess I would just say, in addition to the regular training, our entire front of the house staff, whether it be entertainers, DJs, hosts, servers, bartenders, are all tips trained in how to identify signs of intoxication. They are also crowd safe trained, and that is updated every 3 years.
In addition to that, Jim, was there any, persons at the club inquired with servers and also reviewed credit card records, concluding that it did not appear that Mr. Williams was overserved?
We couldn't find any credit card records for the individual, no. So we can't make that claim. But again, the entire staff is trained to look for signs of intoxication. I mean, you know, in a crowded nightclub, depending on who's going to the bar, who's getting the drinks, where they're going, it's possible that you know, we missed something on him with the fact that he had situations in his life that being that he was, had just recently gotten divorced, there's a potential that he, had too much to drink.
And the information with regard to the divorce, how do you know that?
His friend, mentioned that to security that night. The friend he was here with.
I have no further questions of witnesses. If the board would like to question them, that'd be great.
Thank you, and I will just state for the record, we did receive the letter and the videos you submitted this morning. I am attempting to share them with the commissioners as we speak during this hearing, so. They
Thank
will
you.
be available for commissioners' review shortly, if not at the end of this hearing. With that, we'll see if there are any questions. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you. Just one question for Sergeant Sweat. Did you ever, Sergeant Sweet, sorry, did you have an opportunity to review any of the security footage?
No, I did not review it.
Okay, no problem. We just received it this morning too. I have no other questions.
May I interject there? If Sergeant Sweet, if you'd like, if you offline, or perhaps Attorney Green can forward you that video clip, I'm happy to do it too, but I don't know what the protocol would be here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you either way, Sergeant Sweet. If you would like those videos, we'll make sure that they are sent to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carr and Commissioner Saxon, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No questions from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board will take this matter under advisement.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Calling item number 4, K&K Restaurant Group, Inc., doing business as Estella, located at 49 Temple Place. Date of the incident, May 13th, 2024. Assault and battery, patron on patron in front of premise in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13A. And assault and battery, patron on police officer in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Chapter 265, Section 13D. Who is present on behalf of the licensee?
Good morning, everyone. Helder Brandale, the owner, and my head of security as well.
Thank you. Could you please identify your head of security, or they couldn't identify themselves? I don't see anybody else on video right now. In the meantime, who
So
is?
he was on. We can continue on, so I'm not holding anyone up, and then see what happens on.
Sure, we can swear him in when he joins. Thank you. Who is, and what's his name, just so I know who to look out for?
Let me call him. Give me 1 second to see if he's on.
Thank you. Chairman Joyce, would you like to hold while we wait for the head of security, or come back to this?
We can, yeah, we can proceed.
I think that's him, One Source LLC. He's trying to
Oh,
talk.
thank you. Yes, I see. There we go. I'm going to unmute you right now. If you could please just identify yourself for the board.
Yes, how you doing? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerry Desalinas. I'm the head of security at Estella's Restaurant, located on 49 Temple Place, downtown Boston.
Thank you very much. I got your first name, Jerry. What was your last name again?
Desalinas, Dessalinas.
Desalinas. Thank you very much. And who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
Police Officer Gerard Travers, District A1 downtown.
Thank you, Officer Travers. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify this morning?
Alec will just be reading the LPV into notice. I think there's someone else here too.
Detective Mark Walsh, A1 Detectives.
Thank you, Detective Walsh. Is it possible to turn your camera on so that we can swear you in?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. We see you. Perfect. Can you all please raise your right hand? Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Who will be reading the initial report into the record?
Officer Travers, if you want. Or...
Yeah, so there's actually 2 reports that
Correct.
occurred about 10 minutes apart from each other. I can read both of them if the board would like.
Great. Thank you very much, Officer Travers. You may please proceed.
About 12:59 a.m. on Monday, May 13th, 2024, Officers Lucas and Scott and Alpha K1 made several on-site arrests as a result of a radio call for a fight outside of Estella Lounge, 49 Temple Place, Boston. The entire A1 last half shift responded as there was a report of a large crowd fighting in the street in front of the establishment. Also responding were multiple units from District A7 and D4. Officers have responded to this establishment on multiple occasions as there have been numerous fights accompanied by large uncooperative crowds. Upon arrival, officers parked their cruiser on the corner of Washington Street and Temple Place as the crowd prevented traffic from passing through. Officers observed a large group in the street running, yelling, and fighting. As officers approached the main group, they observed the suspect, Pascal Innocent, swing and punch an unknown victim in the face with a closed fist. The victim fell to the ground and Innocent immediately began running from officers on Temple Place towards Tremont Street. Officers Lucas and Scott began to pursue the suspect on foot when a second suspect, Raekwon Washington, grabbed Officer Lucas by the front of his ballistic vest with both hands and pulled him multiple times. Officer Lucas pushed Washington back, at which point he grabbed Officer Lucas a second time by the top of the chest. Washington was yelling that Innocent had done nothing wrong and to let him go. Officer Scott continued to pursue Innocent, who ran onto Temple Place to Tremont Street, down West Street, onto Washington Street, and back into Temple Place. Officer Scott was able to gain control of Innocent, who was placed under arrest without further incident. As Officer Scott pursued Innocent, Officer Lucas gained control of Washington and attempted to place him in handcuffs. During this time, Washington pulled his hands away and continued to attempt to turn around and face Officer Lucas. Officer Lucas gave multiple verbal commands to turn around and stop resisting, which were ignored. While attempting to secure Washington, multiple friends and family members of Washington began pushing and pulling at Officer Lucas in Washington in an attempt to prevent an arrest. Officer Lucas was struck multiple times, but was unable to determine additional suspects as there were so many people. Officer Drew and Alpha 103 came to assist Officer Lucas, at which point she was also pushed by multiple unknown suspects. Officers Lucas and Drew were ultimately able to place Washington in handcuffs. Washington was brought to A1 and secured. As the group continued to ignore commands and to vacate the area, Officer O'Neill attempted to stop a female believed to have committed an assault and battery. During Officer O'Neill's attempt to gain control of the female, a third suspect, Sean Pasley, grabbed Officer O'Neill by the arm. Officer O'Neill pushed Pasley to gain space, at which point Pasley stepped in and pushed Officer O'Neill. Pasley attempted to flee, but was immediately stopped by Officer Giblin and Sergeant Hogan. All suspects were transported back to A1 for booking without further incidents. No officers were injured as a result of the incident. Officers were also unable to identify the initial victim of the assault and battery due to the high volume of people and nature of the scene. And all three of those individuals were charged with assault and battery on a police officer. Additionally, Washington and Innocent were charged with resisting arrest and assault and battery and interfering with a police officer. And then the second report was about 10 minutes after that. Once again, the entire A1 last half shift responded to a large fight at Estella's Lounge located at 49 Temple Place in downtown Boston. Sergeant Hogan immediately called for additional assistance from A7 and D4 emergency deployment teams. Officers were heavily outnumbered by the crowd and encountered a very hectic scene with heavily intoxicated individuals in the middle of Temple Place, as well as the sidewalks. A1 officers were able to successfully break up the fight, which initially resulted in 3 arrests. Simultaneously, as emergency deployment teams arrived on scene, officers from D4 observed a physical altercation involving parties who had departed from Temple Place and now made their way onto Washington Street in the area of the Godfrey Hotel. Officers observed Shakia Richardson Yancey near Master Edge 2 Yankee Harry Delta 82 and engaged in a physical altercation with 2 passengers. As officers intervened, they removed the 2 passengers and the driver from the vehicle in an attempt to de-escalate the situation. At some point, Richardson Yancey had thrown an object at the windshield of Pam's vehicle, which caused damage to the center of the window. At this point, based on their observations, as an instigator, Richardson Yancey was placed into handcuffs and placed into a marked District D4 cruiser. Upon video review, Alpha 103 accompanied Richard Yancey to Tufts. She stated that her car was vandalized, which she believed to be the 2 passengers in the vehicle in which the altercation occurred. Upon video review of the altercation back at District A1, Sergeant Hogan and Sergeant Plunkett were able to successfully locate the altercation on Boston Police, A1 Washington, and Temple Place camera. The footage shows Richardson Yancey smashed the windshield of the vehicle with a valet sign while the 2 passengers are in the vehicle. The two passengers exit the vehicle and led to a physical altercation between the three of them, with punches being thrown in front of the vehicle. Initially, Richardson Yancey was placed under arrest, but per Sergeant Hogan, after review of the footage, the decision was made to release Richardson Yancey from police custody in order to be summoned in lieu of arrest. And Richardson Yancey ended up being summoned for assault, dangerous weapon, and destruction of property, less than 1,200.
Thank you very much, Sergeant Detective Gallagher. I believe yours
Yes.
is the final report.
Yeah, the last one's my report. On 5/13/2024, at about 10:25 p.m. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the licensed premise unit, conducted a licensed premise inspection of Estella at 49 Temple Place. Detectives were made aware of a fight in front of Estella at about 1 a.m. on 5/13/2024, involving patrons of Estella. Sergeant Gallagher spoke to Sergeant Plunkett shortly after the incident, informed that he would follow up with the licensed premise inspection. BPD incident reports number 24203855590 and 242038595, written by Officer P.O. Travis and P.O. Lucas, detailed the events of the evening. A total of 3 persons were placed under arrest. During Sergeant Detective Gallagher and Detective Hernandez's interaction, he spoke with the manager, Mr. Billy LaCroix, who stated that he was not aware of the fight. I'm sorry, not there during the fight. Detectives informed Mr. LaCroix to save any and all internal videos pertaining to the incident. As a result of this incident, Sergeant Gallagher issued a licensed premise inspection notice number 018025 to Estella for assault and battery, patron on patron, assault and battery, patron on police. Mr. Billy LaCroix signed for and accepted the notice. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brandeo. Mr. Desalinas, would you like to address the alleged incident?
1 second, Danny.
Sure.
There was a sentence that Officer Travers did not read into the record in the police report where it says Richardson Yancey stated, it's like the second to last paragraph, the first complete sentence, it says where Richardson Yancey said she was when the fight occurred. Oh, I guess the second sentence. While at the hospital, Richardson Yancey stated to the officers that she was at Estella. I just want to get that on the record.
My apologies.
That's okay. So if you could just read that sentence from the police report.
Yeah, I'll redo that paragraph. So Richardson Yancey went to Tufts. While at the hospital, Richardson Yancey stated to officers that she was at Estella with the 2 females from the car. When they got into an argument, Richardson Yancey then walked over to her car on West Street when she observed the vehicle was keyed and the window smashed. Richardson Yancey then saw Kara Squill and her friend in the white Range Rover and approached them asking why they vandalized her car. Kara Squill responded, "Bitch, you ain't on shit." Richardson Yancey reported that Kara Squill then took a Don Julio bottle and swung it at her forehead. Richardson Yancey further stated she defended herself against Quesquio and Pam.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for that, Officer Travers. With that, Mr. Brandeo, Mr. Desalinas, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, I just wanted some clarification on why there's 2 different reports. Is it just different officers at the time, or?
I can answer that. There was an initial radio call for a fight, and then subsequent to clearing Temple Place about 10 minutes later, officers from a different district that were called in to help back up District A1 officers on site at another physical altercation around the corner at Wash and Temple.
Thank you so much for that clarification, officer. So it was a group, this was a graduation celebration kind of. They all came in together, all friends, family. The mother was there of this gentleman. And there was actually 2 young ladies, I guess, from what we heard in the rumors, fighting over this gentleman who had graduated. So it was very unfortunate. The fight did start at the bar. The securities did a great job. They separated the group, took them outside, de-escalated the situation, and then they kept coming in back together and started to fight again. We actually called the cops. Jonathan, our manager, who's crowd safe, who was there for the night, made a call to for some help. As soon as he saw the fight and the crowd get agitated, it was about 43, I believe, in the building. We had 6 securities at the time, which were all, they were really in the mix of trying to really separate this crowd, very agitated crowd. Again, they were celebrating the graduation. This is not a group of crowd that we usually get, and it was a younger crowd, and probably early in the 20s, and then it just got a little bit agitated. We called the police. The securities were right on it and doing their best to separate this group of people. On that, we've made. I've taken the action of actually I suspended all Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays as far as promotional on there, losing probably $30,000 to $40,000 a week because of that. Again, to deviate from any headaches or situations like this until it's to figure out how do we not get this crowd. I know bar fights are gonna happen, but it's I just don't want to deal with it. So, and I'll let Vice Security just get more into it of his take on things, and then I'll take on any questions that you all may have.
Thank you, Mr. Rendell. Mr. Deslinas, anything you would like to add for the board?
Yes, so on the night in question, it was actually Mother's Day weekend. It was actually Mother's Day. So as Mr. Brendeo has stated, it wasn't the usual crowd, because we usually get crowds mid-30s, early 40s. Pretty docile crowd for the most part. This group just decided upon itself to choose that location to celebrate the graduation. And so what transpired as I was in the bar, there was 2 young ladies having a heated discussion, and as I turned, because their voices was elevated above everyone else's, just as I turned, one of them threw, I think it was a cup of water or some drink towards the other individual, which started the altercation. I was able to separate the two. The person that was hit with the drink, I held them back, as the rest of the security was right there to remove the other individual to get them outside of the establishment. At that point, once I knew that security had cleared the other individual and parties associated with that individual, I proceeded to go outside myself to lend aid and support to whatever was going to happen outside. So as that was going on, the bar was being cleared out, because at that point we had decided to suspend the operations for the evening, just in lieu of safety. We weren't sure how many people were involved, what was going on per se. So we wanted to be sure that everybody was exiting the building and making sure everybody was making their way to their vehicles or their path home, however that may be. So other members of the security team was continuing to try to de-escalate the situation, which seemed to be working for a time. But again, these are intoxicated party goers, and they just continue to antagonize each other. And at some point, it revved up again. So we was doing our best. I was aware after the fact that management had already called the authorities, because they wanted to be sure everything was going to be all right. And as we were trying to separate everything, and as everything was being escalated, that's when the officers arrived. Basically, what we heard on the report is what was.
Slim, how long do you think that particular group was in the building?
That particular group was probably in the building 45 minutes, because they were a late entry. They weren't there at the beginning of the event. is what I'm saying. So, and to be honest, they all came together. They all seem to have known each other. So,
Because when I left, it was slow. It was
correct.
slow. I was like, it's a slow night. People are
Correct.
we got
Correct, because
and I
most
get
of
a
the
call
crowd,
at like 1 in the morning.
most of the crowd, the Mother's Day crowd, the people that came brought their mothers out. That was
And
more
then it
earlier
died
in the
down.
evening. And then it died down, and that group showed up as it was dying down, and that was more or less the body of the of the patrons in the restaurant at that moment.
Thank you. Anything further before we move to questions from the board?
Oh, sir.
Okay, with that, we will see if there are any questions. Chairwoman Joyce.
Thank you. I don't know if this is a question for the security or not, but how many security members were working that evening?
That evening we had seven security members, not counting myself, so 8 in total.
Is that at the normal amount you have on a Sunday night?
Well,
I think it was 6, Slim. I believe
6.
it was 6 with you, Slim. I believe most.
Yeah, I'm sorry. 6 with me included would be 7. Yes, usually we have about 5 to 6 security, but we added an extra body because it was Mother's Day weekend, and we knew that we would carry on well into the evening. It's usually pretty slow on a Sunday night. So, but because it was a special Mother's Day event, Mother's Day brunch that was had earlier that day, we just wanted to make sure that we had enough security on site in case anything were to arise.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brandeo, do you have any internal reports or the videos that you were going to preserve?
I can check. I could send. I know I've sent like Slim and Jazz, the promoter, like snippet of what happened inside. I'll check if I can still get the stuff from back then. I don't think so.
You don't think so? Because it says in the police report that the detectives asked Mr. LaCroix to save any video or internal notes pertaining to the incident. Do you have any internal reports pertaining to the incident?
Yeah, I think Jonathan Duke did write a report, as well as I believe Slim did write a report.
Okay, could you forward those to the board?
Will do.
And the video, if you, it says that you were asked to save the video, so if you could also forward that to us for our review.
Okay.
We vote
I
Thursday.
probably don't have the video, but
Okay, what is your policy? I think we've been through this before on preserving video if asked by the police.
I was not aware of this.
Okay, so who's Mr. LaCroix? Does he work for you?
Yeah, he's a manager.
Okay, have you talked to him about this?
No, like from when you all came, it was way too late. I think we just got the hearing probably a couple of weeks ago.
Sure, but the night of this incident when the entire
No one spoke to us.
No one spoke to you?
No one spoke to us that night. They
Okay,
literally
but Mr. LaCroix, Detective Gallagher and Hernandez showed up the next day at 10:25 p.m. on Monday. So they spoke to Mr. LaCroix, who said works for you.
Yeah, he's a manager.
Right, so I'm assuming as the owner, as the manager of record, you spoke to your manager and you said, geez, what happened when Detective Hernandez and Sergeant Gallagher showed up? No?
Nope, I didn't get
Oh,
it.
you guys don't talk? You guys don't talk?
We do. It could have been that it was a miss.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you one more time. Anytime the police show up, you and every one of your staff needs to be aware that you need to preserve the video.
We don't have a problem preserving the video. I didn't
Okay.
know until Mr.
You don't need to get a police report. You don't need to be told by the police. I am telling you, Mr. Brandeo, as the owner and manager of record, I am instructing you to preserve the video.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Okay, good. Because this was only May 13th, 2 months ago. They showed up at 10:25 the following evening. And I want to tell you to the security team, to make you aware as well. Everyone should be aware that I am instructing you for the last time to preserve all video when there's a police response for anything at your licensed establishment.
Well, we've sent you videos before.
Okay, but there's no, you're telling me right now you probably don't have the video for this because you didn't hear about it until late? So there's
Yeah,
a
the
problem
first
with
time I've
your-
heard of it was
There's
when
a
Mr.
problem with your staff if Mr. LaCroix is not telling you the police showed up and that the police told him to save the video.
I'm not saying there isn't a problem, but I'm telling you, I was notified by Mr. Gallagher himself that he's coming out, probably like a week ago or something. Or if I did, I didn't think nothing of it before, but
Okay, so
he usually emails me now.
we vote on Thursday. I'd like to see the internal reports. You just said you think there's 2.
Correct.
And I'd like for you to confirm in writing that you spoke to Mr. LaCroix and that you've instructed him and the rest of your management and staff and security team to preserve any and all video should any police officer show up at a licensed premise in response to an incident.
That is correct.
I don't want to go
LaCroix
through
is-
this again and again.
I'm just giving you some feedback. You vote on Thursday. Mr. LaCroix is in Aruba until Sunday.
Okay. I'm sure you can get in touch with him. This is very important. Commissioner Curran or Commissioner Saxon, do you have any questions?
I was just wondering if anyone can speak to, I might be getting it wrong, but were both parties that were fighting inside Arden, were they put outside at the same time?
No, he held the one. It was 2 girls that were fighting. It wasn't a party, and then it escalated outside. So from it, so it's two young ladies that were fighting, and they didn't even get to fight because security did a great job. They pulled them. I think Aaron brought one outside, and then Slim held the young lady in. But it was a lot of family members and a lot of friends from this part of the group. Slim, would you say it was about 20 of them?
Probably more like 25, possibly
25,
maybe
30.
more.
Okay.
But the two initial the people that initially got into the altercation, I held one young lady back in the bar as other members of my team escorted the other person involved in the incident and their group outside of the bar. Once we got them out, once I knew they were out and clear to the entrance and up the street more towards on Temple Place, heading towards Tremont, then I proceeded to go out. I had another member keep the other young lady back in the bar, and I went outside to render aid to my guys that were outside. And I believe,
go ahead.
Yeah, so at that point, there were just people arguing and people were upset, and there was a lot of people moving about. Obviously, we were emptying out the bar at that point. And I believe that the 2 initial people involved in the original incident weren't even in proximity of each other at that point. So what happened, what escalated, what ended up happening were other members of the same group began to argue and dispute positions of right or wrong, and that's when things escalated. So the 2 original members of the first incident, I don't, to the best of my recollection, I don't believe they ever came into contact with each other again after the initial incident.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't clear on that. Now it's clear. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it was just a big group. Even when they came out in the chaos, the only time we came in communication or in contact with police officers were when they brought back a hostess purse that was removed in that commotion when she had it, as she was probably about to leave around that time, as she had it on the host counter. But how far up were you in security, which they they have cameras on Temple, which they should see, that you all were pushing them pretty far apart.
Yeah, we had went
On
past the
Washington,
jewelry
one
store.
on, yeah.
Yeah, we had because the group had got pushed back towards the jewelry store, but once the guys had got them past the jewelry store, there was like a pile of trash right there on the sidewalk, per usual, on a Sunday evening. And at that particular location, that's where things escalated once again, and my security was being overwhelmed per se, and they were trying to separate the new combatants towards each other. And that's when I came in to render help, and I was told by management that the police were called and they should be on their way. And at that point, I mean, their response time was pretty good. They showed up and they took over from there because our manager asked us to step back and allow the police to do their job.
Just curious about their demeanor when they came in. You said they came in kind of late. Did they come in? Did you notice that they were a little rowdy at right at the top of the hour, or?
No, they actually came in.
They came to party.
Yeah, they came. They were pretty. I was actually I usually check the IDs. So they came in. They didn't seem like agitated or rambunctious. All of this just happened out of nowhere per se.
The mother is friends with the promoter, Jazz. You know, the mother was involved. They had a mom there. It was a graduation celebration. And that's how Jazz came to find out what they were arguing about, which was the good time brunch, is what he was doing, which goes from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And then he had the after party, which was the Mother Day after party, which was from 10 to 2, I believe. I mean, yeah, for the timing, but I don't know what he called it at the time, but it was a after party, and they reached out to him and said we're coming to celebrate. And to my understanding, everything was good, and it all started with 2 young ladies, and then it just went south. This was a family. This was a lot of friends that all came in together and all knew each other of some sort.
Yeah, to a degree, yes, correct.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board?
I have 2 more questions. Mr. Brandeo, I can defer the vote this week to give you more time to get in touch with Mr. LaCroix, who you said is out of town. We vote next Thursday. Would you get in touch with him? So
he'll be back Sunday.
So just to be clear, I'm looking for, you mentioned there was probably 2 internal reports, your video, and a statement from Mr. LaCroix.
Correct.
Okay, and Officer Travers, just to get a clearer picture, the police report says the entire A1 last shift responded. About how many people is that?
It depends on the night. I would say somewhere between 12 to 15, but we also had officers from 2 other districts assisting that night. So as far as totals, it was more than that. I just don't know the exact number.
And so you had to call officers from other districts because you felt like you didn't have enough with 12 to 15 responding to a crowd outside a Mother's Day brunch / graduation party?
So yeah, that would be like a supervisor decision. We have these things called emergency deployment teams. And there's a certain amount of officers in every district that will go to different districts depending on the event that's going on. So that's the call that the sergeant made in the moment. So we had officers from the South End and East Boston also assisting us downtown.
Okay, that's probably, in your opinion, in your professional opinion, is that a lot of people to respond?
Yeah, depending on the situation, it could be the whole citywide EDT teams or just ones from certain districts. So like I said, it was pretty chaotic. So as far as the total number of officers on scene, I can't speak to that, but it's comprised of 3 different districts at one point.
Okay. Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thank you. Anything further from the
Am I
board?
okay to ask a question?
Mr. Brando, go ahead.
What goes into how many officers you call versus that district versus another district? Like, what goes into that? I'm trying to figure out trying to kind of go back into why that question was asked. I'm just trying to figure out what goes into how many officers are called.
Well, like I said, that's a supervisor call, but on that particular night, I believe there are probably 12 to 15 of us, and there were easily more people on Temple Place than there were officers working that shift. So that was a supervisor decision to call in extra help.
So it's just because it's a large group.
Yeah, with a large fight call, we had
That's normal to get as many cops and police officers as possible, correct?
large fight. I mean, it depends, but like I said, that's not really my role in this. That's a supervisor call.
Okay. I just wanted to notate that this brunch was going on for probably close to a year, but it started probably when did you all start? Probably like last February. Like it's probably it's gone
Yeah.
over a year, right? So
Yeah,
we stopped it the day after the party. I have text to Jazz say, hey, unfortunately I have to stop this. But it was probably a year and 2 months, you would say, right?
roughly. Yes, roughly.
Okay, I just want to put that on record that brunch and after party on a Sunday was going on for
long standing.
a very long standing before any issues on Temple Place, and we take that very serious. I don't want to be here talking to you all, and I don't want to put these notions into Estella bar fights. Estella, that's not what I'm trying to do.
Thank you, Mr. Brendo. We appreciate that. And if there's nothing further from the board, then the board will take this matter under advisement. Please do provide the internal reports as well as any video you may have and or a statement from Mr. LaCroix as requested by the chair.
And I could just add one more thing, and I could send proof of this. I'm losing probably $40,000 to $50,000 per week by not having these events.
You can submit anything you would like in the record for the board to consider.
Okay, no problem.
With that, the board will take this under advisement. Thank you. Calling item number 5, The Next Place LLC, doing business as The Greatest Bar located at 262 to 266 Fringe Street. Date of the incident, April 21st, 2024. Overcrowding on the second floor, 122 mechanical count, capacity 100, in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64, and Board's Rule 1.03J and 1.06A and F. Who is present on behalf of the licensee? Attorney Blitzer, you're on mute right now. Hang on. Just asked you to unmute.
Good morning, Attorney Green, Chairman Joyce, members of the board. Kurt Blitzer representing the Next Place LLC. With me today is Dan Green, one of the managers at the establishment, who was working that night.
Thank you. All right, see Mr. Crowley, who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department.
I am Detective Hernandez.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Detective Hernandez, if you could please read the report into the record for the board.
Yes, good morning, sir. I'm reading from a report which I wrote on Sunday, April 21st, 2024. Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez assigned to the BPD license premise unit, conducted license premise inspection of the Greatest Bar. Upon entering the establishment, detectives asked the front door staff what the kind of patrons inside the establishment was. The staff member stated they had a count of 413 patrons. Once inside the establishment, detectives noticed the second floor level appeared to be overcrowded. Detective Hernandez performed the mechanical count of the establishment and discovered that the number of patrons located on that level was 122. While reviewing the licenses and permits of the establishment, detectives learned the capacity on the second floor is set to 100 persons. Detectives brought this to the attention of the person in charge, Mr. Jovan Beal. Mr. Beal stated he would bring the premise into compliance. Discovered, Detective Gallagher issued a license for inspection on 02106 for overcrowding of the second floor level of the establishment. Mr. Beal signed for an acceptance notice.
Thank you very much. Attorney Blitzer, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, please. If I can ask Detective Hernandez a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Morning, Detective Hernandez.
Morning, sir.
Staff was cooperative that night when you went in?
Yes, sir, extremely.
Okay, and they immediately made the second floor in compliance when you went through the count with them?
After we made the count, yes, sir.
Right after that. And there was no other issues on any of the other floors with capacity, correct?
No, sir, we did not notice that.
Okay. And again, the overall establishment was within the capacity limits.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions. I may just address the board. We have on each floor, we have a mechanical counter. We have a counter at the door when they come in, when the IDs are taken and scanned in the beginning. We have a count on the front. We do have a counter on each floor. That particular night on that floor, we had an individual that was there. We had a large group of people that had reserved that floor. That night, we had people, it was kind of toward the end of the night. And as some of the overflow, the people were leaving from the top floor, came into that floor, he obviously lost count. We had a long meeting after that night dealing with the staff that was working to go over the capacities for each floor so that each individual knows that we have to keep each floor in compliance with the overall capacity in the establishment. So that's something that is reiterated on a weekly and monthly basis when we have staff meetings, and that individual was reprimanded for that particular night. He was a newer individual that we had working, but he is he's a good person, has been working well there, and we've had no other issues or problems with him.
Thank you. Anything further before we move to questions from the board? Attorney Blitzer, do you have anything further?
I do not.
Okay. Chairman Joyce, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
No questions for me. Thank you.
None for me, thank you.
Thank you. The board will take this matter under advisement as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And calling item number 6, Arguedas Corporation located at 30 Bennington Street in East Boston. At date of the incident, May 12th, 2024, a bottle service violation in violation of Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 64. Who's present on behalf of the licensee?
I'm trying to get out.
Good morning, Attorney Green, Madam Commissioner, members of the board. Mark White on behalf of the licensee. I am here with the current owner, Rigoberto Restrepo, as well as Lucy Perionez, who was present at the time of the incident and signed the inspection report.
Thank you very much. Who is present on behalf of the Boston Police Department?
I am Detective Hernandez.
Are there any other individuals with firsthand knowledge of the alleged incident who wish to testify?
Sergeant Detective William Gallagher, if need be.
Thank you. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Detective Hernandez. If you could please proceed with the police report.
Good morning again. I'll read from another report, which I wrote on Sunday, May 12th, 2024, showing Detective William Gallagher, Detective Eddie Hernandez, assigned to the BPD License Permit Unit, responded, conducted a license premise inspection of Bohemia's Restaurant. While walking into the establishment, detectives observed patrons sitting at a table with a clear carafe of hard alcohol, aguardiente. Detectives also observed many shot glasses filled with the same liquid. The bottle was left unattended and made available for self-service access to make beverages. Detectives informed the person in charge, Miss Lucy Perionez, that this is a prohibited practice. Bottle service is not a condition allowed on the establishment's common victual license. Ms. Perionez stated that she would immediately correct the situation. As a result of what detectives observed, Sergeant Detective Gallagher issued license premise inspection notice 024 for bottle service violation unattended bottles of alcohol on table. Ms. Perrin signed for the notice. It should be noted that this establishment was issued an inspection notice for the same violation on July 30th, 2022, report number 222087. That's all. And there's a,
Thank you very much. Attorney White, would you like to address the alleged incident?
Yes, I'd first like to note that both Mr. Restrepo and Ms. Perrin, their primary language is Spanish. They're not great English speakers. So I did have a discussion with them prior to the hearing, and the summary is as follows. My understanding is this carafe is a small plastic bottle. It may fit maybe between 8 and 10 ounces. It is used within the restaurant for water, ice, juice, not for the service of alcoholic beverages. They immediately addressed this with the waitress that served that particular table, who was suspended without pay for a period of 2 days. My understanding is there were 4 people at the table. So again, it's no excuse for it, but it wasn't a situation of over service. They do have and have had regular meetings since that point to enforce that there's no bottle service at the location and no service in these small carafes. And we have discussed changing the water service from these small plastic bottles to maybe just a different type of service, so that single service water, so that this type of thing can't happen again in the event that a server does something like this. And I should note, as it relates to the previous and actually this particular violation, this was a recent approval to Mr. Restrepo. This occurred prior to his approval as the new manager of the license.
Thank you, Attorney White. Anything further before we move to questions?
No, sir.
Great. We'll see if there are any questions from the board. Chairwoman Joyce.
Hello. So you said you had a discussion about not having the bottles for water on the table. How did that discussion end? What's the policy now?
Well, they're going to remove those small plastic carafes and find a different type of container, maybe a more personal container for water and ice. But also want to make sure that it's plastic so that, there's no glass breakage on the ground.
So does that mean there'll be no community bottle on the table?
They're not going to have a community bottle on the table for water either. That's going to be either served directly by a waiter or and again, just smaller
So do you feel
containers for
confident that they understand that they're not allowed to have bottle service or serve, or customers are not allowed to serve themselves anymore? I know he's new to this license, but he has been a manager of record on other licenses before. And I believe he has testified under oath that he's familiar with the rules and regs of our board and all that stuff. So we've been here before in 2022 with the exact same violation. So does he or she have any questions that we could answer for her right now?
I don't think so, Madam Commissioner. I've also discussed with them putting in place some written rules, not just meeting, but written rules that the wait staff will sign off on, both in English and in Spanish. It's going to indicate very clearly that there's absolutely no bottle service, whether it be in a conventional bottle that you'd see on a shelf, or whether it be in a carafe or something like this.
So you've discussed that. So have they agreed to that? Are they going to do it?
Yes, Madam Commissioner. I
Okay.
understand.
Could you send us a copy of that in English and in Spanish?
Yes, I will draft that and I will send you a copy of that as well.
Okay, I just want to confirm that they understand what we're talking about.
Ok, ella quiere confirmar con ustedes que ustedes entienden que no hay servicio de botella, ok, que nosotros vamos a poner en orden unas instrucciones para los empleados que ellos van a tener que firmar, que indica muy claro que no hay servicio ni de botella tradicional, ni una botella como esta, ni un container como este. ¿Entienden completamente?
Yes, I do. Understand.
Yes, they understand. And I just made very clear to them, this is what we're going to do. There's no type of bottle service or quasi-bottle service. This is going to be something we're going to have everyone sign off on. And I'll also recommend that they post it within the work staff area at the restaurant.
Okay, do you think you can get that to us by Thursday, by our vote?
Yes, I can get it to you by Thursday.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Commissioner Carter, Commissioner Saxon?
Yeah, I just want to drill down what happened here, particularly. it's my understanding you're saying that it's just one employee is responsible for this whole sequence, is that right?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, and is this a table server?
This was a table server.
Okay, so did this table server like go behind the bar, take the commercial bottle of aguardiente and pour it into a separate carafe?
Let me ask. Okay. Él quiere saber cómo la mesera llegó a tener el aguardiente en la botella. Quizás ella fue atrás del bar y lo puso ahí.
Sí,
That's what they think may have happened.
en el baño. It was the bathroom.
Okay, go ahead. What was that last bit?
No, she's. Que fuiste al baño.
Sí, con el momento que yo fui al baño.
She believes it could have happened at the time that she was in the bathroom. Lucy, who was in charge of the bar at that night.
Okay, so Lucy was in charge of the bar, and this employee took the, was that their regular duty? Was that their duty to take a bottle and pour a drink?
¿Es el trabajo de la mesera llenar la botella o no? ¿O es el trabajo del bartender?
Del bartender,
No,
pero yo no estaba.
del bartender, pero yo estaba en el baño.
Okay, but that's the job. It's the job of the bartender to serve the drinks. It's the job
Yeah.
of the waitress or the waiter in this case, to serve them. But she indicates she believed this happened when she went to the bar. She was working the bar that evening, and this is what occurred.
Pero ella tenía que esperar y no esperó y ahí cuando yo no me di cuenta.
So it would have happened when she was not, again, she was in the bathroom. She wasn't in direct observance of the bar at that time.
Okay, so this server was, I would assume, I would conclude that if I were you, and I'll ask you if this was your conclusion, that they were trying to hide this from you?
Sí, que ella te lo estaba tratando de esconder.
Eh,
Esa acción de ella.
sí, pero yo no me sabía ni lo que estaba pasando.
Ay, no, pero respóndeme sola la pregunta y no adicional. Ella lo estaba tratando de esconder.
Sí.
Nunca
Sí.
Te lo imaginas así. Yes, she imagines that was the case.
Okay, and how is this transaction being entered into your, ticket system, your point of service? What was the
¿Cómo lo están
server
cobrando?
charging?
¿Cómo lo estaban cobrando? ¿Cómo hubieran cobrado una transacción como esa?
Como era algo incorrecto, yo
No.
por eso la suspendí, porque ella dijo, voy a hacerlo mientras que voy al baño y yo no me enteré.
Pero ¿cómo lo hubieran cobrado? ¿Cómo hubieran cobrado en dinero?
En trago.
En tragos, eso se cobra.
Like en como 4 tragos. o
Sí,
algo así.
claro.
Okay.
Eran 4.
So this would have been entered into the system like it was 4 separate drinks, so if there were 4 shots in there, then more likely than not, they would have entered it in as 4 separate drinks. And again, I would note that there were 4 people at the table. That being
Yeah.
said, it's no excuse for it. I mean, this is,
I'm asking particular to this incident because it seems like you're telling us you have a rogue employee who's going behind your back and serving the alcohol in a way it's not supposed to be served. But you suspended her for a couple of days, right?
that's correct.
All right, it seems to me that this person's breaking the rules and maybe is even not entering in the, money transactions correctly. It seems to me you would look at that and see how that person was entering a large volume of drinks served to people to see that they weren't kind of, double, giving them 2 drinks for 1 or anything like that. Did you do anything like that?
Well, I don't think they did. It seems to me to be an isolated incident. I do realize that this happened under previous management a couple years before, but they did take a disciplinary action against the employee. It's possible you don't agree with the severity of it, but they did take a disciplinary action.
It's not just the severity of it. I don't find it very credible that what was happening and you only disciplined her for 2 days. I know that bar owners are very concerned about, their profit margins. And if this person's dumping a large volume of alcohol into a carafe without measurement and without properly documenting how many drinks the customers got and then charging them correctly, I would expect a business owner to scrutinize that closely. And it doesn't seem like you have.
I disagree with your characterization of that. I think you're jumping to conclusions on it, sir, with all due respect.
All right, you're trying to convince me that this is a rogue employee doing something that they weren't supposed to be doing behind her back surreptitiously, correct?
That is true.
Okay, and so.
This is, but it
I'm
happened
supposed
on
to
one
believe
occasion.
that the owners don't endorse this practice, and that they had no idea it was happening. But you didn't scrutinize the amount of money that was made off these transactions.
Well, as far as we know, it's one particular transaction. I don't believe, and I could be wrong here, that there were any carafes seen at any other table at the restaurant. It was seen at one particular table at the restaurant and no others. So we have evidence of this happening one time. They're taking responsibility for it. They did discipline the employee. We can go back 2 months to the point of sale and try to find out how it was entered in. What we would imagine, it was probably entered in as 4 shots. More likely than not, they ordered 4 shots and she brought it over in a carafe. It's possible she was pressured by the clientele. I don't know. But what we're saying is moving forward.
Attorney, just seems like a lot of speculation after the fact. Whereas I would expect you to I would expect an owner, when this happens, to figure out everything that happened here. And I don't find it credible that if you're telling me you have an employee who's gone basically behind their back and done things secretly without their knowledge, that they didn't try to figure out exactly what happened. How many ounces of alcohol were poured out of that bottle and given to a customer? And therefore, how much they should have been charged for all those ounces?
Well, the bottle itself has between 8 to 10 ounces maximum in it.
Okay, and what does that represent